Your strategy has to involve your mindset, and your strategy then involves the actions that you take to move you from where you are to where you want to be.
I'll start with what Visa isn't, right? Visa doesn't issue credit card. We don't issue credit. So Visa doesn't do that, which surprises a lot of people.
We'll use a phrase like, well, things changed, but things don't change. People change things. All the legislation that has been passed, somebody advocated for that. And so International Women's Day is to commemorate that history of women making change.
Several of the banks have started to migrate their existing debit card portfolio to chip and pin EMV technology. So the SMEs are going to benefit from a wide range of customers who previously did not have a credit card, but only had a debit card.
Good morning and welcome to the live series Straight Off the Bat, a show that covers the need to revive, survive and adapt to this new normal of COVID-19. Join us on Thursdays as we speak to individuals across multiple industries who will help you understand financial literacy and education. If you're joining us from Facebook, thank you so much. We appreciate you. We see you. Make sure to do this thing now, like and follow us to continue seeing this content, because I can assure you not seeing this anywhere else. Today we're discussing strategies for relaunching your career during COVID-19 in Trinidad and Tobago. I have the great privilege to talk to Ms. Lara Quentrall-Thomas. She is the founder of Regency, Recruitment and Resources, with over 30 years of experience in the human resources industry. She can help you with professional networking, because I know a lot of us have a problem with that. I know especially now in digital space, how do you do that? Resume writing, which apparently is just a known issue across the human resource industry, and business etiquette, which is very important for you to know. She also possesses a master's in business administration, and she has certificates in HR, contract law, behavioral economics, and critical thinking. She wears many hats and is the founding president of the Association of Female Executives of Trinidad and Tobago, and an Employment and Labor Relations Committee member of the Trinidad and Tobago Chamber of Commerce since 2019. And also, something I just learned about her, she loves to read murder mystery books and watch the controversial Ted Bundy movie on Netflix, which tells me she seems to love the human psyche, and we plan to learn about that. I'm going to pick her head a little bit and learn more about what she has to say in terms of human resources.
Good morning. I am doing great. I mean, you make me sound like such a ghoul. They're like all dead bodies, and but I do think you're right. I think a lot of HR people probably enjoy that kind of story, because it really does delve into the dark side of human psyche and human experience. And it's a really important and interesting thing to understand, because who knows when you see it in the workplace, right? So yeah, thank you for welcoming me. I'm really excited to have this conversation with you.
This space in the HR industry, specifically in Trinidad and Tobago, because, we see a lot of things online, we see things that are relative to the US, but Trinidad and Tobago is a very unique space.
Indeed.
And we want to learn from you. And let's start with work environment, because it is a place now that people are trying to figure out, transition is a big word, transformation. What is the trends that you're seeing within that work environment that's happening right now?
Well, obviously, one of the, I don't want to say benefits, because I know COVID has been a very traumatic experience for millions of people. But I think one of the real silver linings of this entire experience has been the move to remote work, flexible work, work sharing, flexi time arrangements, all of this sort of thing, which, we've been talking about for a long time in HR. And in some parts of the world, it's been happening for a long time, but Trinidad was really behind the curve. And, we've all sat in traffic for 5 hours to try and get somewhere, and people who have to drop their kids in the morning and pick them up have horrors to get in for 8 a.m. And so all of a sudden, we were working at home and working from home and doing remote work. And I think for many of us, myself and my company included, we're going to probably carry on doing some version of this after COVID, whenever that happens. And I don't know that there'll ever be an after COVID, because it seems to keep mutating and hitting us for six. But I love the fact that the pandemic has forced employers and employees and all of us to really rethink, how do we do the work that we're paid to do in a productive way, in a meaningful way, but just not physically at the office anymore. And, there were some professions that had been able to do it for some time, but for a lot of people, going to the office every single day was just a normal thing. That's how we grew up. That's what we knew. So the whole thrust about remote work, moving online for meetings and presentations and training has been remarkable. I was saying to somebody the other day, I'd never heard of Zoom before COVID. I mean, we'd used Skype a little bit, but never heard of Zoom. And now, I'm a Zoom expert, as many of us are. So I love that. I love the fact that the technology that was there. I mean, imagine if this had happened 30 years ago, we may have really had a very different experience. And that so many employees and employers were able to transition to remote work. The flip side of that is that for many of us, it's actually ended up extending our workday. So we have found ourselves working longer, later, sometimes even at the weekends, because now you're kind of accessible 24/7. And whereas before, your cutoff point was 4 or 5 o'clock, now people are reaching out to connect with you later on. So in a funny way, it's actually made us work harder, some of us in some professions. And that has led to, I think, Zoom fatigue. There are some days my eyes burn at the end of the day because I've been on the computer for 8 hours straight on Zoom. And, it's lovely to interact with people from around the world and deliver workshops to participants around the world. But boy, it does get exhausting. So good and bad, I think the workplace environment has changed, and I hope it changes forever, because we need to use technology to be a more productive society, to deliver services to citizens more efficiently. I hope that the government service, all of the ministries, move online, start delivering services online, so that we don't have to, I went to pay some VAT this week, got to car park at 7 a.m, lined up at 7:30 to be let in at 8 o'clock. Those things should not be happening anymore. It's 2021. We should have all of our services for citizens online, right through to payment and delivery. So I hope that the pandemic is pushing us into the modern world where, many other countries perhaps were there already. But there has obviously been a real downside for many. Many people have had their hours reduced, their pay reduced. And of course, we've seen that the numbers of people that have lost their jobs entirely. So the pandemic has forced us to really look at how we operate, who we hire, how we train them, how we manage them, how we evaluate performance and productivity, and how we run our businesses and connect with our customers in this new digital normal. I love it. I love what we've had to do and how we've had to evolve. But I do realize that a lot of people have been left behind. So we do have an opportunity, I think, to, bring them with us and look at jobs, look at the jobs that we have. Do we still need 15 copies of something, stapled or photocopied like we used to do? Those things should be a thing of the past now. So I'm cautiously optimistic that this is pushing us into the, the modern era.
Yeah.
But that was like my first experience with money. Very, very first experience.
I've been in banking since I was a teenager.
Okay, so first of all, I want to say that a resume and a CV are not the same thing, right? So first lesson of the day. A CV, your curriculum vitae, is the story of your life. So your CV gets bigger and bigger as you progress through your career. Every time you get a new qualification, a new job, a new project, etc. So your CV can be 40 pages, 50 pages. Your resume is what you use for job hunting. So the resume is essentially a summary of the skills, achievements, accomplishments that you extract from the CV, tailored to the job you're applying for. So the most important thing to know about a resume is that you don't send the same one to every job. There are some exceptions, of course. Younger people who don't have a lot of experience, maybe just left college or just left school, their resume is probably going to be pretty much the same. But for professionals who have 10, 15, 20 years experience, you need to really tailor and customize your resume for the job, the industry. What employers are looking for are what is known as transferable skills. So you may have been an HR manager in the manufacturing sector. You're now applying for a position in a bank. What skills can transfer across to the banking sector? There are some skills that transition across industries very seamlessly. There are others that are very industry specific. So when you look at a job that you're applying for, your resume should be tailored to that job description, to the vacancy specifically. They're looking for X. I may not have X, but I have Y, which is nearly as good, and this is why, and I will explain it. A resume is forward focused. A CV is backward looking. So a CV is history, everything I've ever done in my life. A resume is, these are the skills, the top 5 things I have that I think you, Mr. Employer A, or you, Mr. Employer B, should interview me for. This is why I will add value. This is why I'm the right person to meet for this particular job at this time. So essentially, every time you apply for a job, you should be using a different resume. You may move information around, you may highlight different achievements, different skills, but it's a dynamic document, unlike the CV, which is really quite static and you just sort of add information to. What we recommend is that if you get invited for an interview, that's when you submit your CV, and then they'll get all 400 pages of your entire life story. The exception to this rule is academic recruitment. People who are applying for positions in academia, to be a professor or a lecturer, that kind of thing, very often are asked for a CV up front and not a resume. So it is important to understand the difference. It's important to understand what employers want when they ask for it. I think most people don't know that there is a difference, but for us, certainly when you're applying for a job, we will specify if we want a CV or a resume. So resume, skills focused, forward focused. Here's what I'm selling. It's almost like a brochure of, top 5 things you should know about me, and then meet me and I'll give you my CV. So there you go.
Well, I mean, even if I was Googling, I would be Googling for the wrong thing, because that's worth their money in gold now. I mean,
yeah, and most people don't know it. So that's what's so interesting.
Yes. Donna Walcott in the comments, she's like, I know now. I'm like, girl, me too, Donna. Me too. I stand corrected. We are learning these things together. Right? And Deandra said the same thing on YouTube. This is news to us all. News to us all. Thank you so much for that, Lara. We needed that.
My pleasure. My pleasure. And one thing I want to say as well is that when you think about the skills that you're selling, because this is a sales document, as I say, it's an advertisement, it's a brochure. Don't just think about your work skills. Think about, maybe you volunteered, maybe during COVID you were unemployed, and I would hope that you found a way to do something productive after you got over the initial trauma. Volunteering in your community, maybe you helped out at some of the vaccination sites, maybe you helped in your community, or you did some online courses. People have been doing lots of different things during COVID. Think about those, and what do those skills mean to your next employer? So you may have volunteered. Let's say, for example, I spent some time at Napa helping with the vaccination drive, working on Sundays there, and engaging with members of the public, doing administrative work. That's an important skill that could be translated to a job. So it's not just your jobs, it's your other work, voluntary, community, maybe even through your church, or anything else that you've done, even a sport. Maybe during COVID you've been doing some online. I've been playing mahjong online. And Mahjong is a game of strategy, and that's a useful skill. So it's not just your jobs, but it's all of the skills that you have that you think this is going to be what that employer is going to want, because I've done my research. I know what kind of people they like. I know what kind of people do well there. Let me show them why I'm the right person for them. My grandfather was in the Navy and he was stationed in the Far East. They were in Singapore, and that's where she learned to play Mahjong. It's very popular with expat families. My sister played, and I've learned to play. It's a really lovely game. It's lovely. It's I don't know how to describe it, but you have to really think through what your opponents are going to play. It's fun. It's not, I don't think it's quite as hardcore as chess. But the goal is to get Mahjong, you have to play a certain number of tiles. And yeah, I've been really enjoying it. I should have mentioned that. That's probably the closest I get to an organized hobby.
Well, I mean, in the gaming world, which is a multi-billion-dollar industry, that might be something you put on your resume. Which, by the way, we have a question. I don't know how to pronounce this. Is it Kadiang? I'm hoping I'm not spoiling a name, but he wants to know, how long should a resume be?
Okay, great question. A resume should never be more than 2 pages. So if you are somebody who has less than 15 years experience, you could do a 1-page resume. If you've got more than 15 years, then a 2-page resume, but 2 pages is the maximum. Remember, it's a summary. It's really just meant to it's not a list of everything you've ever done. It's a highlight of the top 10 things that you feel that employer needs to know. So traditionally, when we receive a resume, it's literally a list of everything. So I left school at 18, and my first job, I worked in a fabric store and I was an assistant. I put that on there and I worked there for 2 weeks. It's not that. That's your CV. The resume is the last few jobs, not everything you've ever done, but the last couple of jobs that really are going to be of importance and value to the next employer. That's why I say it's very future focused. It's very skills driven, so that 2 pages should be more than enough. In fact, really, you should be able in the first paragraph to tell me why I should interview you. So use the English language. It's a beautiful, rich, deep language. Use a thesaurus. Try not to be too repetitive. Don't be too generic. But get to the point. What are you selling? Why should I interview you? That's what the resume needs to answer.
Listen, I have so much stories, because I find that we tend to like to tell stories. By our culture, it's nature for us to do so. And that translates into when we ask for, I'm actually in search of someone to do a project, and I specifically ask the person to do something and to give it to me in bullet points. Mm-hmm. They gave me a 7-paragraph email. Wow. And that tells me that you're not listening to what I have to say, because I specifically ask you for bullet points. Yeah.
And it's so true. I mean, now a resume can tell a story, mm-hmm. but it should tell a story in a very dynamic, interesting way, and yes, be concise. If you think about the job market, it's ferocious at the moment. We ran a vacancy for one of our clients a couple of weeks ago, and we got 1,000 applications, which means that we have to review 1,000 resumes for one position. 1,000. So why is your resume going to stand out? Remember, these are virtual, they're online resumes now. As I open it, first 3 or 4 lines, I'm going to make a decision about whether I interview or not. I'm not reading every line, every page to find out that you were in Girl Guides when you were 11, and you volunteered in a roti shop when you were 19. That's not what you're selling. You're selling me. Tell me up front, first line, why should I interview you? Right? This is why. You can tell a story, but I often liken a resume to a brochure. So if you think about something like, this is a long time, you might be too young to remember this, but in the olden days, if we wanted to book a holiday, we would go into a travel agency and we would pick up brochures, maybe a brochure of a cruise.
What's that?
I know, right? Can you imagine? Or a brochure of a I don't know, trip to Disney World. And you open the brochure and there's a couple of really exciting photos of Mickey and the rides and 2 or 3 key points, 400 buffets and 36,000 rides. And, it's like key points. It's not the whole experience. It's never the entire Disney thing, but it's enough to get you to book the holiday. So it's really about your brand, building a brand through your resume that makes me a recruiter or me an employer, an HR manager go, wow, this person is somebody I need to meet. They have exactly what we're looking for. It's not easy to do, which is why you have to invest time and energy and really, really get a resume right, which is why so many resumes are appalling, because people don't put the time and effort in.
What happens after your resume is good to go and you have landed that online interview? What happens? What are the tips that you can give to individuals, especially when you have kids in the background making noise, the neighbor blazing music next door? It's very unnerving when there are a lot of things you can't control. So give us 1 or 2 tips on online interviews, Lara.
Okay, so yes, it's important to prepare for an online interview the same way you would for a real interview in person. So you dress, you put on your face. Men should shave or groom. You should not look like you just woke up, right? Your lower half may be pajama bottoms, but the upper half that we're seeing should be a shirt and tie or a proper jacket. Certainly expect you to be properly groomed. And what's really important, as you said, is to create the setting in your home that allows you to focus entirely on the interview. So wear headphones. I got these for $100. These are gaming headphones, I think. So you don't have to buy super fancy, expensive ones. But what it does is it cuts out all external noise and allows you to focus. Make sure you tell the people in your home, kids, husband, granny, whoever's there, that you are going to be in an interview. And so could they all, I don't know, go and play in the garden or go in another room, or you lock yourself in a bedroom, bathroom, wherever. I've interviewed people in their cars because it's the only quiet space they have. So, you can let an employer know, listen, this is my situation. I've got 5 kids at home or 13 dogs or whatever it is. The best place for me to do that, for me to interview, is going to be in my car, or, I'm going to be going into a quiet private room. It's important to find that space. As I said, if you're looking for a job, this is now your job. So you need to sort of set a space in your home, a corner that looks professional, looks like an office, has proper lighting. Natural lighting is best for an interview, but certainly you need to make sure there's light on your face so that the interviewer can see you. Make sure you've got a great camera, you've got good audio, reliable internet. I was doing a presentation for a client yesterday, and we've had some challenges in this part of the country with internet the last couple of days, and it just kept dropping, and it was horrendous. I have to say, though, for a year and a half, my internet's been great, so it was just this one day. But make sure you've got a good connection. You also should ask in advance, how long is it going to be? Is there anything that you need to prepare? So we have now started, because it's all virtual, we do things like we may ask you to prepare a presentation before the interview, because it's very easy for you just to share some slides off your screen. So if you're a senior person or a management candidate, you may be asked to prepare a presentation on solving a particular problem the company has, or how you deal with particular issues around the job. So you need to know in advance, how long is it going to be? Who's going to interview me? There are panel interviews, even virtually. So you need to know who's going to be in the room. how long it's going to take, what do I need to prepare, what do I need to bring. So, for example, if you're going for a job vacancy or an interview as a designer or something in the arts world or the PR world, then maybe you have an opportunity to showcase some of your work because you can now share your screen. So you can let them know, would it be okay if I prepared a presentation with some of the previous ads I've worked on or the previous designs I've done for websites or whatever. So use the virtual platform to your advantage, because it does give you, maybe you've done a short video with some animation, you can show them this now. It's fantastic. But make sure that your environment is properly set up. Of course, you can find different backgrounds. So if you don't have a super nice, clean home background, or there's lots of photos or personal clutter, then use a background that looks professional, not one with, I don't know, giraffes, or, you know, get a proper corporate background. But the important thing is to, same way you would with a real interview, do your research, make sure you understand the company, the industry, their competitors, make sure you've researched the job, you know what they're looking for, tailor your questions specifically to the job. So you treat it the same way you would a real interview in person, just with a few tweaks for the virtual scenario. There's been so many brilliant things online, you know, people in the middle of a Zoom call with a client and their husband walks behind them in their underpants, and, you know, these sorts of things can happen. That's why it's important that you let people in your home know, you know, I'm going into a job interview. Please, if you need a coffee, if you need a snack, get it now, because for the next hour, I need the kitchen to be empty, or the living room, or whatever it is. You know, people in your home should be working with you to help you get a job. I know it's not always easy, but as much as possible, let them know. I was in a meeting the other day with a woman who had a very young daughter. When I say young, I think she was about 6 months old. And the father just kept bringing her and plonking her on the lap. And this woman was doing a presentation. And I thought, you know, could you not hold her for half an hour? You know, why every 2 minutes she has to be with mummy? So there are challenges. I appreciate that. But let your family help you, if they can, to be successful.
So true. Help is so important. We have a question from Rachel. She wants to know, what do you recommend in terms of reaching out via LinkedIn to current employees of organizations to get a glimpse into a company?
I think that's a great idea, Rachel. So let's say you've applied for a job at Regency, let's say, and you see Kevin McLean, who's our candidate services manager. You could absolutely connect with him and say, look, I've applied for a position, or I'm being interviewed for a position at Regency. Could you tell me a bit about the culture? What should I expect? I don't think there's anything wrong with that at all. They, of course, can refuse to give you that information, or they may turn you completely off the company. But it's in your interest to do the research, to get the information so you make an informed decision. Remember, an interview is a two-way conversation. You also have the right and should ask questions, gather information so that you make an informed decision, so that it is the best opportunity for you, and it's a good step to make. It's the right step to make. So yeah, I think that's a fantastic suggestion. And you can let the company know that you've done that. I think it's important to be totally open and honest. So let's say you spoke to Kevin and he told you, I don't know, everybody in the company has to have blue hair. And then you come to the interview with me and you say, look, I was chatting with Kevin on LinkedIn and he said everybody has to have blue hair. Can you explain that to me? Why is that part of your culture? We can have a conversation. I think it's important to be honest and let people know where you've got your information from. But yeah, it's a good suggestion, Rachel.
Awesome. And we're wrapping up now with the final question. Given the shift in the environment and the move to digital, what are the most popular positions employers are seeking right now? And what are some of the current trends in the work environment with regards to new skills?
Okay, so, you know, the hard skills really haven't changed. So we still look for people with the degrees and the vocational training in their various disciplines. The soft skills have changed a little bit. Communication, effective communication is now more important than ever because you're not doing it in person. So you don't have the advantage of body language. So your written and spoken word is so important now. Your empathy, your ability to really connect with people of different experiences is so critical. As I mentioned earlier, your resilience, your ability to bounce back, to regroup, rebuild is going to be something that a lot of employers are looking for. Your digital skills, without question. So, when we get an application and we shortlist somebody for a job, we check you online. We go and look at your social media pages. So if you're a professional and you're not on LinkedIn, or your LinkedIn profile is no photograph, hasn't been updated for 5 years, something's wrong there. And it doesn't matter what discipline you're in. You have to be aware of the tools that a modern employer works with, a modern employee works with. So a lot of the skills that we need now are connected to digital literacy, digital leadership and so on, but also a lot more around your own ability to be resilient, to be creative. I was talking to a partner in the UK a couple of days ago. We're doing some recruitment for a particular sector that was being really badly hit by COVID. And something like 80% of the people who used to work in that industry are now Uber drivers in the UK. And these are professionals with years of experience, degrees, MBAs. They're Uber drivers because that's what they could get. So we want to see during COVID, what did you do to make a living, to stay relevant, to stay connected, to retain your resilience and your buoyancy. So I think there are so many new things that you have to be able to demonstrate in this new normal. Your digital technical literacy is going to be critical, as well as your empathy and leadership, your creativity and innovation, and your resilience and your ability to, get back on the horse.